Hey everybody, it's Jimmy and Bill. So Bill, what we're talking about today is the Florida real estate market, on how it changed over time. The last 3-4 years, it's been nuts, the things that have changed on it.
Right.
And some of the changes, aren't going back, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk everything from prices to the people moving in. I just think from watching all these videos, reading all these articles, and doing the research that the Florida market, I think, has changed forever. You may disagree on some of these things, but I took some notes from reading all these articles.
Okay.
And let's see if we agree on them or we disagree on them. In the meantime, do me a favor, if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. We're coming out with some really cool podcasts soon. I'm working on those now. And I'm going to tell you the biggest change that I think is happening to Florida. And I'll tell you that towards the end of the video, and you should really be aware of this change that's happening. So the first thing, Bill, is this, we got to talk about it, is during COVID, the influx of new people, okay?
Okay.
Florida's growth has been like, we surpassed New York in Florida's growth.
Right.
So these people moving in from the Northeast or California, when they're coming down here, and when they first started coming down here during the COVID times, and then they saw houses for $250, $300, $350, that was nothing to them.
Right, because they're, why wouldn't you want to move to Florida if you're working remote?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, come on. Like, you can work remote, so you get your salary from wherever you're at.
Yeah.
Which probably surpasses everything here in our state. Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, so a lot of these people, they move to Florida and they realize that Florida's not for them. A lot of them, they just don't realize how freaking hot it gets and the humidity in the summer. And a lot of them do leave, but a lot of them do stay. So we still have a positive migration into Florida.
Right.
So because of this situation, these people are just still moving here, and they're driving prices of houses up. You don't think so?
Well, that's one reason some of the houses are going up, just supply and demand. But Florida's always been relatively popular no matter what, even before COVID. Florida was relatively popular.
But don't you think during COVID,
during COVID, that's a different story.
Yeah, people moved here at an incredible pace, and people were way overpaying for houses.
Oh, people during COVID were paying because you couldn't win. You were, I had customers I was writing contracts on 10 times just because it's whoever could throw the most money at the deal.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
In cash, because the bank obviously is not going to finance. That's why we're not in such a bad position, where people generally compare to 2008. But the banks were still like saying, no, you can't we're not going to finance 110 or 120%. You want to be a fool and pay for overpricing, then that's fine, and get into that crazy category. It's fine. But if you needed a house, you needed a house.
Okay, but this is what I mean by it changed by the out-of-staters moving in and paying those prices. Now, if they paid $500,000-$600,000 for the houses, and they're not going to drop the price. They're not going to drop the price to $300,000, $350,000. That price, pretty much forever, is going to be kind of capped off over there. Maybe a little bit lower, maybe 10% lower, but the 50% lower, I don't think is going to happen. That's one change.
No, I don't. Unless something crazy happens, I can't foresee where we're going to all of a sudden have a 50% decrease.
No.
In home values.
No.
Maybe we'll see a decrease in equity gain, but not a decrease.
Some people are saying we're going to have a 50% decrease, but I don't know why they're saying that.
I don't know what data they're looking at.
If you bought a house for $600,000, you're not going to sell it for $300,000.
I don't see that.
All right, here's another thing. Something that's changed forever is interest rates. Now, interest rates, we had the 2% rates, the 2.5,
right?
And some people are still waiting for those to come back. I don't think those rates are gonna ever come back. And if they come back, the whole economy must be in a lot of trouble for them to bring it down.
We have some issues again. Just think about why we got those rates. What happened? The entire world shut down because of COVID. So and it's never happened prior. So if we're holding our breath, hoping that we have this other crazy world catastrophe that just to bring interest rates down, I mean, it's just very unfeasible in my opinion.
All right, here's another thing that I think is going to change things real estate forever in Florida. And hear me out on this one, then comment, okay? Hurricanes. Florida, I know, always had hurricanes. No problem whatsoever. But we got hit with 2 major hurricanes with a lot of damage. So some of those neighborhoods, because of the 50% rule, which is basically if it's over 50% damage, you have to bring it up to codes. So those houses that pretty much got destroyed are going to be gone, and they're going to build stilt houses now to meet today's codes.
Okay.
Like the house that, for me, is 18 feet up in the air. So I think the days of cheaper homes along the coast are over with, because the cheap homes that were there, a lot of them, aren't around anymore. And they're going to build really expensive houses. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Coastal property has constantly been increasing. It just doesn't stop.
Right.
The more populated an area gets, the more people want to live on the coast. The more we build on the coast, the more risk we have. The more risk we have from storms and, Mother Nature, then obviously there's more devastation.
So, what I think is, and comment on this one too, I think the only people that are going to end up living on the coast, on those stilt houses, are people with money.
Of course. Let's just look at other populated areas. You're talking Miami, certain areas. I know there's some issues with condos and certain things there because it's been all over the news, but in general, Fort Lauderdale, just all the different areas along our coast here in Florida, it's all very, very expensive homes. Mm-hmm. Because it's expensive to live on the coast because it's such a finite commodity.
But in the past, a lot of average person could live on the coast.
Yeah, back in the day, I'm talking way back, like my grandma's there.
I know some people that, in the 80s, 90s, just the average person could live on the coast in Florida because it wasn't that expensive for the average income. But now, forget about it.
Well, if you really want to look back in history, no matter, just we're talking Florida right now, but look back in history, the coast was generally where the fishermen lived.
Right.
So they just lived in the cottages and the little bungalows and basically what you see now. And, people who had money, they wanted to live inland further with their farm and their land. So they didn't live on the coast. The coast is where the fishermen lived. And then it just kind of became popular. Beaches became popular and things started to migrate. Not like I said, I'm talking back, like my grandmother's.
All right, so let's talk about this one. Another thing that will change the Florida real estate market forever. Boom in the luxury market. So now Miami, Fort Lauderdale, even some areas here, they're building some really, really luxury places.
I passed a few today on the way here. Holy smokes.
And I think, that is never, yes, there was always luxury homes, but now they're luxury condos, big towers, these houses, And I'm talking about a lot of rich people moving here building 10,000 square foot homes.
Yeah. Just I took a back road to get here today.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been down this road. It's called Boy Scout Road. I had not been down this road in a long time. And it's a lot of horse farms and riding ranches and things like that back there. But some of those parcels have now been sold off, and I'm seeing these ridiculously large homes being built back there. And I'm talking, like you said, 10,000 square feet, and they're brand new. It's insane. And I think Florida is just becoming, just like where Miami did, it's, everything starts to branch out a little bit.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about right now is lack of affordable housing. So here's how I think real estate changed forever in Florida. When people move to Florida from out of state, everybody migrates to the East Coast or the West Coast. Okay, a lot of people from California like the West Coast, a lot of New Yorkers, New Jersey like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the East Coast. But when they move here, they realize they can't afford it anymore. So the change that I'm talking about is the people that can't afford to live on the East or West Coast, I think there's going to be a migration towards the center.
Yeah, of course there is. Look at Wesley Chapel, Orlando, St. Cloud, all these areas towards the center of the state. They're booming right now. Absolutely booming, not to mention just because of the interest rates and whatnot. Currently, builders have a better leverage point and can offer better interest rates. So,
yeah, but I think, the migration is going to be, that's the change. I think everything's going to change. How about this one? international buyers, I did one of the articles I was reading, they were talking about international buyers are buying, when they say, hey, we're going to buy in the States, they're always talking about Florida. I read article after article, and I did searches, and they're not talking about international buyers buying in New York or California, places you would think. A lot of them are coming here and buying in South Florida, even here. They're just
Of course.
buying. So that's a big change that we've never really seen before at this level. There was always investors, but not at this level.
Yeah, I think at this level it's just gone up. The secret's out with Florida, so everybody's coming here.
Another thing that's going to change forever in Florida is short-term rentals. I think that they're still going to boom. People will be like, okay, let me, buy a house and do Airbnb or something. Airbnb got hurt a little bit for a little while, but I think it's going to come back strong, and short-term rentals are going to come back strong. And I think that people, that's what they feel like they should do, buy a house and do a short-term rental. What do you think of that?
Well, let's define a few things real quick with short-term rental. Short-term rental, you have short-term, mid-term rental, and long-term. So short-terms,
Airbnb stuff.
Airbnb.
Right?
Well, Airbnb does mid-term rentals too, so a month or long.
Okay.
So you have to remember, there's a lot of county codes in our area that are no less than 30 days. So, and then anything less than 2 weeks, there's an additional tax and stuff. It's a hospitality tax on that. But a lot of the counties and a lot of the cities have really restricted how many short-term rentals you can have, because residential people didn't want their neighborhood turning into basically a bunch of independent hotels.
All right.
So it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
You can't just come, it's changed a lot, because before we didn't have these regulations, now we do. And I think those are a good thing, I'm sorry, because I don't want my neighborhood turning into a short-term rental where I have somebody new in there every other day because it's a hotel.
Yeah, my property in Hudson, I had somebody new in the house next door every weekend. It drove me crazy after a while. All right, so basically construction. Okay, Florida's always had construction. You know, big builders, Lennar, all of them,
Yep.
D.R. Horton. But now I feel like they're doubling down on Florida for some reason, and they're building more than they usually did. Do you think that?
Yes, in certain areas, simply because they would build a pocket and then it just kind of was there, right? Like, so Trinity, where you live, they built that. I remember when they built Trinity, and it actually was part of Newport Richie, and then it became Trinity. And it was one neighborhood, and then it just kept building out in the late 90s. But now we've run out of houses, and we know just nationally we have a huge shortage on homes. We're not going to build our way out of it, but little by, in a short period of time. But as long as we have demand with people moving here and families expanding, it's not only just people moving. You got to remember, people have children here, and then the children get older and need a house, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. So basically, Florida here's another change. Florida used to be the #1 retirement destination. It's actually not anymore.
That was kind of where I was heading with.
Right.
It used to be a elderly population, and now we have an explosion of more workers, middle-aged, younger generations with the colleges and things like that coming to Florida, and that's adding an extra pressure onto our housing inventory.
Right, because it used to be that Florida is like, okay, people used to say it's God's waiting room, So when you say I'm going to Florida and you're from New York, that means okay, you're older in age and stuff, and you're going to go down there and retire and stuff. That's not now. Now the young people are moving here, which is changing the real estate landscape.
Yep.
And not only is it changing the real estate landscape, but a lot of these people that have retired in Florida, they're going to age out, and a lot of young people are going to buy those houses.
Oh, of course.
So that's going to be a big change. What about this one? Economics. I think big corporations are moving here.
Yep.
So that's changing the real estate land, because a lot of them, you're doing some corporate relocates, right?
Yep.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have more industry here in Florida than people think. We've got Lockheed Martin here, we've got GE here, not the phone company, but GE Aviation. There's some Boeing here, just in the Tampa Bay area, and the list goes on. And as those companies expand, they need workers, and not, we're talking engineers. There's, we have tons of research hospitals here, leading the country in cancer research and a lot of different stuff. And, there's 2 more hospitals going in for Moffitt out in the San Antonio area, which is just in Pasco County. And, so they're going to need new researchers and scientists.
So it's not all hospitality anymore. So now that's changing the real estate, because now some high-paying jobs are coming to Florida. So these high-paying jobs, people buy more expensive houses and stuff.
Yep.
All right. What about this one? Is going to affect. This one's going to affect housing too. Transportation improvements. So we don't have much of a transportation system.
Yeah, public transportation.
But they're working on it. So like they have their train from Orlando to Miami, and now they're going from, they want to do from Tampa to Orlando.
I'm not holding my breath.
I know, but what I'm just saying is they're working on some things to do. They're widening the streets, so they're making bigger highways. They're taking 2-lane highways, making it to 4 lanes. So how is that affecting real estate? Now people can live further and still get to work in a reasonable amount of time.
Right, because they've got to connect. We have to connect where everybody's living. So, in other words, when you go inland, east, from where we're at, you've got to have roads that can handle the influx of people, number one. And then when they start building these new what they call planned development units, these giant communities that are pretty much self-sustaining, they've got to be able to connect to where the jobs are until the jobs come to those areas, because that's all part of that plan. So the industry, like San Antonio, as I mentioned, they've got Moffitt and such going in over there. Well, that hospital's not there yet, but they're planning ahead in the next, 5-year plan.
Sure.
Schools are going in, fire stations, police stations.
Even where
everything.
I live, what was announced yesterday. Hockey stadium, soccer stadium. It's nuts what they're willing to invest.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about millions. I'm talking about billions.
This is a phase 1's like a 5-year program, and we'll do a video on it because I started doing some research, and what's coming here is insane. It's downtown Disney times 6.
And you know what's the most insane thing? If this is accurate, all the photos that they sent, it's in my backyard. Like from my house, I could look at it. So I don't know, if it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. But literally, one of the drawings they had my house in it.
Yeah, it's because there's only so much land there, and that's just one phase of it. It's going to extend out further, more easterly. But that's the main phase that's coming in, and then as they grow, it's going to extend out.
All right, how about this one? Okay, so another thing that's changing real estate forever in Florida is the boom in multifamily housing, because rental demand is increasing too. So a lot of investors coming in here, they're building multifamilies and they're moving in.
So like apartment complexes, you mean?
Yeah.
Or you're talking multi-generational living?
No, I'm talking about apartment complexes.
Okay, yeah.
They're all popping up all over the place.
Yeah, there's in 2023, Wesley Chapel Planning Development Committee announced 25 or 26 new luxury apartment communities, and a lot of them are finished now. And let me tell you, they're nice and they're big.
Yeah, they're becoming they're not the apartment you would think about. These are luxury apartments.
Yeah, these are very, very nice. And it's to build because of the supply. There's more people coming in here. The builders can't build the houses as fast. Mm-hmm. Multifamily is obviously faster to build.
And here's one, zoning regulations. Zoning regulations changing which is going to change the real estate landscape. A lot of them are changing right now. And they're making them so if they're in a floodplain, they have to be built higher. If they have to handle the wind, the hurricanes. That's affecting real estate, and it's affecting the cost of building these things.
Yeah, that's obviously going to drive things up. Pasco County for the new construction, depending on where you're building, there's a cutoff. I don't remember the exact road, but there's a cutoff on the wind zones because of where you need impact windows versus you don't need impact window, or it's required.
Right. So, all those things, that's forcing insurance up. So insurance alone, the cost of insuring a home is affecting housing.
Yeah, hopefully that'll regulate out. Eventually.
Hopefully that will regulate out, but insurance, we did videos, and we could do a lot more videos on insurance anyways. Anyways, that's today's video. So I think a lot of these changes that are happening, you know, it's here to stay. A lot of them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything that's, you know, interest rates are going to come up and come down, you know.
But they're not going to be back at 2%.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Don't hold your breath.
I'm sorry. Just being direct is, you know, sometimes it's easier to rip the Band-Aid off. You know, but they will come down. Will they come down? I know there was some recent data that came out. Are they going to come down right away? Nope, probably not.
No.
And even the data today is solidified the fact that they're not just. You know,
everybody said, oh, the Fed's going to cut rates. And they cut rates, and what happened? The rates went up.
Rates went up. Because it doesn't necessarily affect everything, and you know we could talk about that till we're blue in the face.
I know, but it is what it is.
It is.
Do me a favor, consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. Check out this video over here. I picked it out just for you guys. And share the video and give it a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks. See you on the next one.